Hey everyone, Aisha here. So today I wanted to talk about the topic assessing what we truly value in our finances. And so this actually was sparked because I wrote a post that went semi-viral, and it said, watch the money moves Beyonce makes with her money and not the ones that she tells you to do with yours. And so watch the money moves Beyonce makes with her own finances and not the ones that she tells you to do with yours. And I went on to say, quitting your job randomly, as she states in her song, Break My Soul, is not a money flex. Neither is spending your tax refund money to see her in concert. And how I shouted out a friend of mine for pointing out that Beyonce is notorious for announcing concert tours during tax refund season. And I said, this is something that continues to keep the Black community poor, and it hurts women's finances, especially Black women's finances, when there's already a wealth gap, because she's taking money from these very same people that can cause them to get ahead financially. And these are the same people that she claims to want to economically empower. I went on to say, if you can afford the tickets and your money is already solid and you want to go ahead and go see her, then this post isn't for you. Go see her in concert and have fun. But I will say that we need to collectively examine how certain people prey on those they claim to want to help. If your money isn't together, then don't fall for the trap. And so I went on to say that. And then I got a wonderful comment that really paused I just paused to think about this answer. And somebody wrote, speak on it. Yes, the majority of the community spends so much, invests so little, and doesn't manage their time or money well. They care more about events and being on the scene with flashy labels than they do being financially stable and in purpose. How do we break this cycle? And I love this question so much that I decided to record a whole video about it. And I love this for a number of reasons, because it addresses major problems that are barriers to people being financially stable and financially free: time management and money management, and also investments. And so my response to this is that it takes a mindset shift to be able to help break that cycle. And I remember going through this because when I was a little kid, actually I wasn't a little kid, I was in high school, I actually used to play sports, and then I quit playing sports because I wanted to get a job. And I wanted to get a job because I wanted to be able to buy clothes, because at that particular point in time, one of the things that I really idolized was a full closet, because, and I've shared this in a number of different videos, where there was an episode in Sex and the City where Carrie walked into the fitting room, filled it up with a whole bunch of stuff, and said, I'll take it all. And that was one of the things that I really valued in life. I wanted to have that Carrie moment where I filled up a fitting room and said, I take it all. And what I ended up doing when I was 18 years old was getting a credit card, which allowed me to do it. And I really thought that I had arrived at that particular point in time when I was able to fill the fitting room up and say, I take it all. That was until the bill came and I actually had to pay that credit card bill. And so I went on for a number of years where I had this cycle where I would binge shop, spend a whole bunch of money, and then having to pay those credit cards back off. And I could never really get ahead, because as soon as that credit card was paid down, I would charge it back up, because of what I valued. I valued what people thought of me. And that was really rooted in trauma. Because when I was 12 years old, I was teased for wearing non-name brand shoes. And at that particular point in time, in my mind, it being so young, I thought that the only way to not be teased was to fit in with what other people did. And so I became this chameleon. And so that really impacted my finances. So number one, I had to figure out who I was. I had to develop my own sense of self-worth, because my self-worth was rooted in other people's opinions. I remember actually in my first book, 5 plus 5 effing phenomenal ways to save $100 without killing your lifestyle, I talk about how I would only wear an outfit once, because once it was on Facebook, I felt like I couldn't wear it again. And so I began to shop just for what I can post on Facebook. And if it was on Facebook, it meant that I couldn't wear it again because it had already been seen, which actually was an extension of something that I used to do a long time ago when I was in school. I had a calendar, and in that little pocket calendar, I wrote down all my outfits, so I went and repeat them, because I made up this rule that I couldn't repeat the same outfit within a 3-month point in time. But when social media was created, it became, once it was on social media, I couldn't repeat it again. And it was really, I was making economic and consumer decisions based upon other people's opinion, trying to impress people. I would make sure, like, whenever I went on vacation or went out to a cool place to eat, I would document it and share it to Facebook, because I lived for the likes. I lived for the yes girl, yes post, where people were applauding the things that I was doing. And so my self-worth was being driven by other people and what they thought about me and what they thought about what I was doing. And so until we really have a sense of who we are, we're not going to be able to make different spending decisions. We will live for the gram. We will value events and activities and things that we can post on Facebook or social media more than we value our financial stability. And so that was one of the things that was key in me transforming my finances in the beginning. Was I actually had to go off the scene. This was back when I was still partying and clubbing, so this was a long time ago. And so I was probably maybe like 27 or so at the time, 26, 27, somewhere around then, when I ended up isolating myself. And this was actually not in like the bad way of isolation. This was actually a good way, where I withdrew from partying, I withdrew from clubbing, and really did things that I enjoyed, things that other people might have think were weird, because I love to read, and I love to watch. Like, I remember during this time, this is gonna tell you how long ago this was. I remember when I withdrew from the club scene, I binge watched 24. I binge watched Lost. I binge watched so many different movies and TV series that I hadn't seen before or decided to re-see again. There were just so many things that I did for me that I had been putting off because I didn't want to miss out on something. I had this fear of like loss, like these FOMO moments where I didn't want to say no to the club. I didn't want to say no to the parties. I didn't want to say no to an activity because I was afraid that I would miss out. Even if I couldn't afford it, I didn't want to say no to a vacation or trip with friends, even if I couldn't afford it. And so I had to really figure out who I was. I had to figure out the things that I valued and the things that mattered to me. I had to figure out who I was, and I later had to do this again when I became a single mom, because I based so much of what I did on comparison to other people, comparison to married moms, comparison to stereotypes and to statistics, that really drove my spending decisions. And so we have to be able to break free from other people's opinions and what we feel like we should be doing, and live more authentically and really adopt a biblical view of how we spend our money. The second thing is we have to change what we value, stuff versus experiences. When my kids were little, I used to buy them a whole bunch of stuff because would buy them like stuff times two, because I didn't want them to miss out because I'm a single mom. And so really the way I show my love to my kids became how much stuff that I bought. But the problem with that is that I ended up working a lot more. And so when my kids were reaching out and they were tiny with their tiny little hands, trying to reach out for me to hold them, I would have them in a playpen, or those pack and play things. And I would be at my laptop working because I was so consumed with how I could make more money and putting in more hours and trying to get more contracts so I can buy them more stuff. But they're just like this, just trying to get me to pick them up and hold them. And so that was really reinforced for me when I heard a story from a friend of mine who grew up with a single mom. And he said that his mom worked so many hours that whenever he looked up at his award ceremonies and his sports games, he will always be searching for his mom in the audience. And she wasn't there because she was at work, because she thought the things that he valued were the physical things that she was buying. But what really mattered to him was her presence, and he could never receive her presence because she was always at work. And I've heard this multiple times through grown-ups who I know personally who grew up with single moms who really thought that they needed to make up for not having a dad, right? By buying more stuff. And I fell into that trap in the beginning as well. And I realized that my kids valued time with me more than they valued the stuff. Does that mean that I had to stop working, right? I mean, I did shut down my business for 3 years, but that was a whole nother story. But I realized that I needed to be able to balance being able to provide financially for my family with spending time with them. And I had to break free from this like single mom guilt type mindset where I had to show and prove my love through the stuff that I bought my kids. And so I think that we, especially within the Black community, like we have this like very consumeristic type mindset where we're like, we tend to be flashy and we tend to get money and then spend it, which is part of the reason why Black wealth is so low. You see, I don't remember the statistics, but when we look at how much we make versus how much we're worth versus how much we spend, it's a problem because we're kind of conditioned to be able to prove ourselves by what we spend. And until we can be able to view ourselves intrinsically that we have value and our self-worth isn't determined by the things that we buy, then we won't be able to break free, because we have to get back to who we are and the fact that we're worthy just as people. We have a worth. Like Christ died on the cross for us because he loved us, right? And so we have to be able to find our value, our identity, our worth in things other than stuff. And we have to be able to shift and be able to view our time more as currency. We have to be able to view our time more as that it matters, right? We have to stop saying things like we have to burn up this time, we have to waste this time, we have to spend this time until we do something else. And until we can begin to view our time differently and view our time in a way that elevates the value of it, we will continue to make spending decisions without realizing how it impacts our time. And so one of the things that I talk about in like my financial trainings is being able to break things down to a cost per hour, to how to what that's going to cost you. And again, I'm not talking about things that are going to buy your time back. So this is a very different conversation than, being able to outsource stuff to be able to buy more of your time back. So I'm not saying that, when you outsource, you do need to look at how much you're going to, what that return is going to be in terms of your time coming back. So we do actually need to pay attention to that. But what I'm saying is that I remember one time I was going to buy a purse or some shoes. I think it was a purse. And so I looked at this purse and said, how many hours am I going to have to work? And at the time I was salaried, but I broke down what I would make in an hour and said, how many hours am I going to have to make in order to pay for that purse? And I looked at it at the time and it was going to be, I forget how many hours, like let's say 10. And then I asked myself, am I willing to work to spend 10 hours of my life to be able to buy that purse? And so when I broke down like that purchase item like that, I'm like, actually, no, it's not worth 10 hours of my life to be able to buy the purse. It really doesn't matter to me that much. And so I ended up not buying it. And so when I realized that when I began to look at items in terms of how much this was going to cost me in terms of my time and what other things I could do that brought me more value from a time perspective, my spending decisions changed. Because I started to ask myself different questions, like what is it that I truly value, right? And funny story, I used to spend a lot of money in terms of dining out. And what helped me there is one day I was at work and my pants split. And so when my pants split, I knew that I had to make different spending decisions because I literally was about to have to buy a new wardrobe. And so this is why it's so important to be able to start to assess our value and the things that matter. Like for me, when my pants split, I had to realize that my health and my weight meant more to me than those spending decisions on food at the time. And so it allowed me to make the better decisions with how I spent my money. And then one of the other things that I say actually in the book 5+5 Effing Phenomenal Ways to Save $100 Without Killing Your Lifestyle, one of the things that I mentioned in that book is how I started to actually assess things. So my kids and I, we used to go to Chick-fil-A once a week. And at Chick-fil-A, we would spend about $30 each time. Well, I would spend $30 each time. And so I started to do the math because I had budgeted this in my budget. So I realized that I was spending about $1,440 per per year on Chick-fil-A. And so when I began to look at things from an annual perspective versus a one-time perspective, I began to see the true cost of what my decisions were. And so what I end up talking about, even in the book 5+5 F and Phenomenal Ways to Save $100 Without Killing Your Lifestyle, I spoke about, like, when you look at things from an annual perspective, start to ask yourself, what else can you do with that money? And when you begin to look at things as if it's not like throwaway, or if it's not just like $30 here, $40 here, especially if you're doing it over time, then you can get a good, better understanding of what you're spending on and what else you can do differently. And so for me, I'm like, okay, you know what? I can put that money away in savings. I can put that aside in like a college savings fund. I can use it to pay down debt. There are so many different things that I can do with that money other than buying Chick-fil-A, which is going to go in through my mouth and exit as waste, right? It just didn't make sense anymore for me. Like, actually, my father said that, he gave that example one time, because my sister and I, we used to spend so much money on our food, and he was just like, why? And like, this is gonna be gross. He was just like, why do you spend so much money that you're just gonna poop out anyway? And once I heard that, I was just like, I literally can't forget it. And so that was like the thing that like helped me to be able to stop spending so much money on dining out. And so the other thing is, and this is kind of like an alignment with what I had just said, it's like we have to adopt a longer term mindset and like delayed gratification, because when we can start to figure out where we want to go later, right? This is why goals are so important. This is why SMART goals are so important, because when you can start to create goals about what you want your finances and your life to look like, then you can begin to make better spending decisions, because you can ask yourself, is this going to get me further from or closer to my goals, right? And so with a concert, like, is spending whatever this money is going to be going to get you closer to or further away from your goals? And I'm not saying that you have to live a life of deprivation. What you have to do is make sure that you're financially secure, plan for it, and plan the things that you're going to do. Like, you have to understand what brings you joy. And I say, like, I kind of use the Marie Kondo example, like, does it spark joy, right? And when I was going through and cleaning up my finances, I literally had to start asking myself, does this expense spark joy? Does this bring me happiness? Does this bring me further from or closer to or further from my goals? And it made things so much easier to be able to streamline the things that I pay for and get rid of the things that I didn't need, but also lean into the things that brought me joy. And then that made it so it didn't feel like deprivation, but instead I was doing things that allowed me to make better decisions towards my long-term financial future, which is important for both me and my children, right? Because as single moms, we have to be able to break free from the struggle of like day to day. And so many of us don't live like that, but so many people actually do still. And so when we begin to think longer term about what we're doing with our money now and really look at it more as positioning ourselves and our family for our future, that helps us make better spending decisions today. And I really talk about how I literally destroyed my finances because I was hurt. And because I was dealing with so much hurt and pain, so I started to spend money in a way that didn't help me and my family, because I was just trying to be able to offset the pain that I was feeling. But at the same time, instead of getting healed, I ended up destroying my finances and putting myself and my family in a deficit that I then had to dig out of. But the thing is, when we can adopt a longer term view of our finances, when we can fix our eyes on our goals, when we can engage in healing, when we know who we are, when we know whose we are, we can begin to make better decisions. We can turn from the things that do not serve us. We can turn from the things that we're doing just to be able to share on Instagram or on social about what it is that we're doing, to be able to draw our value, our worth, our accolades from other people. And we can begin to walk in authenticity in terms of who we are as people. And we can begin to walk more authentically in our finances as well. And then with that, we can put ourselves in a better position to be financially free and do, and make better decisions that have a lasting positive financial impact for our children. Because one of the things that I love about, the things like the Rockefeller family, the Buffetts of the world, people like that, they made decisions not just for the moment and not just for them, but they looked at how it would impact generations to come. Generations to come from their family, but also generations to come from the people who are going to be able to benefit from the philanthropic things that they did. Because it's not just about us. It's about the work that the Lord is doing through us to benefit other people. And so that starts with thinking longer term about our finances. It starts with making better decisions now with our finances. It starts with knowing who we are as people and knowing whose we are as well. And I go into this a lot more in my book, Navigating the Impossible, a survival guide for single moms from pregnancy through the first year of motherhood. So I definitely encourage you to check that out on Amazon, and also on Amazon, or if you want a signed copy, navigatingtheimpossiblebook.com. Alrighty, so make sure you like this video, subscribe, share with some friends, and join me next time. All right, have a good one. Bye.